This is part 11 of Good Omens. The Bentley's engine went pink as it cooled. Crowley's temper, on the other hand, was heating up. You said you saw it signposted, he said. Well, we flashed by it so quickly. Anyway, I thought you'd been here before. 11 years ago. Crowley hurled the map onto the back seat and started the engine again. Perhaps we should ask someone, said Aziraphale. Oh, yes, said Crowley. We'll stop and ask the first person we see walking along a track in the middle of the night, should we? He jerked the car into gear and roared out onto the beach-hung lane. There's something odd about this area, said Aziraphale. Can't you feel it? What? Slow down a moment. The Bentley slowed again. Odd, muttered the angel. I keep getting these flashes of... He raised his hands to his temples. What? Said Crowley. Aziraphale stared at him. Love, he said. Someone really loves this place. Pardon? There seems to be this great sense of love. I can't put it any better than that. Especially not to you. Do you mean like... Crowley began. There was a whir, a scream, and a clunk. The car stopped. Aziraphale blinked, lowering his hands and gingerly opening the door. You've hit someone, he said. No, I haven't, said Crowley. Someone's hit me. They got out. Behind the Bentley, a bicycle lay in the road, its front wheel bent into a creditable Mobius shape, its black wheel clinking ominously to a standstill. Let there be light, said Aziraphale. A pale blue glow filled the lane. From the ditch beside them, someone said, How the hell did you do that? The light vanished. Do what? Said Aziraphale guiltily. Now the voice sounded muzzy. I think I hit my head on something. Crowley glared at the long metallic streak on the Bentley's glossy paintwork and a dimple in the bumper. The dimple popped back into shape. The paint healed. Up you get, young lady, said the angel, hauling Anathema out of the bracken. No bones broken. It was a statement, not a hope. There had been a minor fracture, but Aziraphale couldn't resist an opportunity to do good. You didn't have any lights, she began. Nor did you, said Crowley guiltily. Fair's fair. Doing a spot of astronomy, were we? Said Aziraphale, setting the bike upright. Various things clattered out of its front basket. He pointed to the battered theodolite. No, said Anathema. I mean, yes, look, what you've done to that poor Pantheon. I'm sorry, said Aziraphale. My bicycle, it's bent all to... Amazingly resilient, these old machines, said the angel brightly, handing it to her. The front wheel gleamed in the moonlight, as perfectly round as one of the circles of hell. She stared at it. Well, since that's all sorted out, said Crowley, perhaps it'd be best if we just got on our... you wouldn't happen to know the way to Lower Tadfield, would you? Anathema was still staring at her bicycle. She was almost certain that it hadn't had a little saddlebag with a puncture repair kit when she set out. It's just down the hill, she said. This is my bike, isn't it? Oh, certainly, said Aziraphale, wondering if he'd overdone things. Only I'm sure Pantheon never had a pump. The angel looked guilty again. But there's a place for one, he said helplessly. 2 little hooks. Just down the hill, you said Crowley, nudging the angel. I think perhaps I must have knocked my head, said the girl. We'd offer to give you a lift, of course, said Crowley quickly, but there's nowhere for the bike. Except the luggage rack, said Aziraphale. The Bentley hasn't... Oh, huh. The angel scrambled to spill the contents of the bike's basket into the back seat and helped the stunned girl in after them. One does not, he said to Crowley, pass by on the other side. Your one might not. This one does. We have got other things to do, you know. Crowley glared at the new luggage rack. It had tartan straps. The bicycle lifted itself up and tied itself firmly in place. Then Crowley got in. Where do you live, my dear? Aziraphale oozed. My bike didn't have lights either. Well, it did, but they're the sort you put those double batteries in, and they went moldy and I took them off, said Anathema. She glared at Crowley. I have a bread drive, you know, she said. Somewhere. Aziraphale looked shocked at the implication. Madame, I assure you... Crowley switched on the lights. He didn't need them Aziraphale looked shocked at the implication. Madam, I assure you. Crowley switched on the lights. He didn't need them to see by, but they made the other humans on the road less nervous. Then he put the car into gear and drove sedately down the hill. The road came out from under the trees and after a few hundred yards reached the outskirts of a middle-sized village. It had a familiar feel to it. It had been 11 years, but this place definitely rang a distant bell. Is there a hospital around here? He said. Run by nuns? Anathema shrugged. Don't think so, she said. The only large place is Tadfield Manor. I don't know what goes on there. Divine planning, muttered Crowley under his breath. And gears, said Anathema. My bike didn't have gears. I'm sure my bike didn't have gears. Crowley leaned across to the angel. Oh, Lord, heal this bike, he whispered sarcastically. I'm sorry, I just got carried away, hissed Aziraphale. Tartan straps? Tartan is stylish, Crowley groaned. On those occasions when the angel managed to get his mind into the 20th century, it always gravitated to 1950. You can drop me off here, said Anathema from the back seat. Our pleasure, beamed the angel. As soon as the car had stopped, he had the back door open and was bowing like an aged retainer welcoming the young Massa back to the old plantation. Anathema gathered her things together and stepped out as haughtily as possible. She was quite sure neither of the two men had gone around to the back of the car, but the bike was unstrapped and leaning against the gate. There was definitely something weird about them, she decided. Aziraphale bowed again. So glad to have been of assistance to you, he said. Thank you, said Anathema icily. Can we get on? Said Crowley. Good night, miss. Get in, angel. Ah, well, that explained it. She had been perfectly safe, after all. She watched the car disappear towards the center of the village and wheeled the bike up the path to the cottage. She hadn't bothered to lock it. She was sure that Agnes would have mentioned if she was going to be burglared. She was always very good at personal things like that. She'd rented the cottage furnished, which meant that the actual furniture was a special sort you find in these circumstances, and had probably been left out for the dustmen by the local war-on-want shop. It didn't matter. She didn't expect to be here long. If Agnes was right, she wouldn't be anywhere long, nor would anyone else. She spread her maps and things out on the ancient table under the kitchen's solitary light bulb. What had she learned? Nothing much, she decided. Probably IT was at the north end of the village, but she'd suspected that anyway. If you got too close, the signal swamped you. If you were too far away, you couldn't get an accurate fix. It was infuriating. The answer must be in the book somewhere. The trouble was that in order to understand the predictions, you had to be able to think like a half-crazed, highly intelligent 17th century witch with a mind like a crossword puzzle dictionary. Other members of the family had said that Agnes had made things obscure to conceal them from the understanding of outsiders. Anathema, who suspected she could occasionally think like Agnes, had privately decided that it was because Agnes was a bloody-minded old bitch with a mean sense of humor. She didn't have the book. Anathema stared in horror at the things on the table. The maps, the homemade divinatory theodolite, the thermos that had contained hot Broville, the torch, the rectangle of empty air where the prophecies should have been. She'd lost it. But that was ridiculous. One of the things Agnes was always very specific about was what happened to the book. She snatched up the torch and ran from the house. A feeling like the opposite of feeling you're having when you say things like, this feels spooky, said Aziraphale. That's what I mean. I never say things like, this feels spooky, said Crowley. I'm all for spooky. A cherished feel, said Aziraphale desperately. Nope, can't sense a thing, said Crowley with forced jolliness. You're just oversensitive. It's my job, said Aziraphale. Angels can't be oversensitive. I expect people around here like living here, and you're just picking it up. Never picked up anything like this in London, said Aziraphale. There you are, then. Proves my point, said Crowley. And this is the place. I remember the stone lions on the gate posts. The Bentley's headlights lit up the grooves in the overgrown rhododendrons that lined the driveway. The tiles crunched over gravel. "It's a bit early in the morning to be calling on nuns," said Aziraphale doubtfully. "Nonsense. Nuns are up and about at all hours," said Crawley. "It's probably Compline, unless that's a slimming aid." "Oh, cheap, very cheap," said the angel. "There's really no need for that sort of thing." "Don't get defensive. I told you these were some of ours, black nuns. We needed a hospital close to the air base, you see." "You've lost me there." "You don't think American diplomats' wives usually give birth in little religious hospitals in the middle of nowhere, do you? It all had to seem to happen naturally. There's an air base at Lower Tadfield. She went there for the opening. Things started to happen. Base hospital not ready. Our man there said, 'There's a place just down the road.' And there we were. Rather good organization." "Except for one or two minor details," said Aziraphale smugly. "But it nearly worked," snapped Crowley, feeling he should stick up for the old firm. "You see, evil always contains the seeds of its own destruction," said the angel. "It is ultimately negative, and therefore encompasses its downfall, even at its moments of apparent triumph. No matter how grandiose, how well-planned, how apparently foolproof an evil plan, the inherent sinfulness will, by definition, rebound upon its instigators. No matter how apparently successful it may seem upon the way, at the end it will wreck itself. It will founder upon the rocks of inequity and sink headfirst to vanish without trace into the seas of oblivion." Crowley considered this. "Nah," he said at last. "For my money, it was just average incompetence. Hey!" he whistled under his breath. The gravelled forecourt in front of the manor was crowded with cars, but they weren't nun cars. The Bentley was, if anything, outclassed. A lot of the cars had GT or Turbo in their names, and phone aerials on their roofs. They were nearly all less than a year old. Crowley's hands itched. Aziraphale healed bicycles and broken bones. He longed to steal a few radios, let down some tires, that sort of thing. He resisted it. Well, he said. "In my day, nuns were packed full to a Morris traveller." "This can't be right," said Aziraphale. "Perhaps they've gone private," said Crowley. "Or you've got the wrong place." "It's the right place, I tell you. Come on." They got out of the car. 30 seconds later, someone shot both of them, with incredible accuracy.